Hello and welcome to Dear Franny, the podcast where I have uncommon conversations about love with fascinating people. I'm your host, Francesca Hogi. Today's episode is a great one. I talked to Mandy Hale. Mandy Hale is a New York Times bestselling author. She has written multiple books with more to come, and she is the founder of the Single Woman Movement, which is all about loving your life and feeling empowered and joyful, because being single doesn't mean you can't have love and joy and excitement and purpose in your life, of course. So Mandy is a real trailblazer, one of the few women out there who are talking about being single in a really positive way, which is super amazing and needed in this culture of ours. So I'm really excited for you to listen to this conversation. We talk about worthiness and her latest book, You Are Enough, which is a great one. Please enjoy my conversation with the lovely Mandy Hale. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. She is a friend. She is a brilliant New York Times bestselling author. She is a thought leader, and she is an all-around amazing, beautiful person, Mandy Hale. Welcome to Dear Franny, Mandy.
Thank you so much. I am super excited to be here.
Yay. So, for my listeners, who I'm sure many of you are listening to this episode explicitly because you want to hear Mandy, which makes a lot of sense. But for those of you who may not be familiar with Mandy, she is a blogger turned New York Times bestselling author and is the creator of the Single Woman social media movement that has revolutionized what it means to be single. The author of 4 books, Mandy's empowering message reaches millions of women across the world every day. You can connect with her online at mandyhale.com or on social media at The Single Woman. And we will, of course, link to all of Mandy's contacts in the show notes, so be sure to connect with her. Mandy, how are you?
I'm great. I'm having a lovely summer. How about you?
Oh, really good. Really good. How's Tennessee?
Tennessee is hot and humid, but it's good. It's good.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Well, you've written 4 books, and your first book was The Single Woman, and this was really the book that launched this movement. What inspired you to become the single woman? Like, what happened?
Like most things start with an ending. I had gotten out of a really terrible, toxic relationship. It was actually an abusive relationship, and a situation I never imagined that I would find myself in, because you don't ever imagine that you'll find yourself in this situation until you're there. But yeah, I was on the other side of that relationship and in the process of healing and, feeling very empowered that I was finally able to leave and just really enjoying my singleness and kind of looking around for empowering, inspiring messages about being single, and there were not a lot of empowering, inspiring messages about being single. There were a lot of, depressing messages and warnings,
very
and, just sort of negative portrayals of single life out there, or overly dramatic, or, whatever. But nothing that I felt like really truly spoke to the journey of the single woman. And so I really just thought, hey, I'm a writer. I've always loved to write, and was kind of looking to get into doing something a little bit more on the creative side anyway. So I thought, I'm just going to start writing about my journey. And I actually wanted to be called The Single Lady, because that's when the Beyonce song was really popular.
Yeah, what year was this?
That was going into 2010, so almost 10 years now, and that Twitter handle was already taken, so I was like, I'm gonna try The Single Woman, and amazingly it was available. And so sort of by accident I created a brand, and women just really started to respond to it, because I think that they were the same as me. They were looking for something positive, someone speaking about singleness in a really uplifting way, and so they connected, but also a really real kind of funny way as well. And so they really just connected with the message, and it kind of took off from there.
You were really a pioneer in this empowered single woman message. Now we're seeing a lot more of that.
Still not as much as you would think, because in the past 10 years since I started doing, what I do, I've always it's really just been kind of in the last year or so that I feel like women's empowerment has really started to really catch fire. But I still don't know that anybody is really specifically, or there are people, but just not as many as you would think, talking about singleness in a positive light. I really kind of thought when I started doing what I was doing that singleness would become this, sort of at the forefront of the conversation. And, it has been on and off over the years, but there's never really been just what I think is sort of this uprising of people saying, hey, we're going to take back, singleness, and we're not going to be boxed into this little label and this little idea of, single and desperate or single and unhappy or whatever. We're going to, reclaim it, and we're going to, talk about loving our singleness and embracing our singleness. And so, it's my hope that it will continue. I think that we're definitely headed in the right direction, but I still would love to see even more people pop up who are kind of leading the charge for viewing singleness in a positive light.
Yeah, I guess you are right. You're right. There aren't many people talking specifically. I guess there are so many people now talking about body positivity and loving yourself and loving your life, and that, certainly encompasses, of course, being single, if that's what you happen to be. You have, over 500,000 Twitter followers, so who are obviously connecting with your message. Do you find that, because I think your message is relatable to women who aren't single, so like your audience, are there women who kind of joined maybe when they were single, they started following you, reading your books, but now they may be partnered, but they're still following you and they're still consuming your content? Because I think that what you talk about, especially in your most recent book, You Are Enough, which I definitely want to talk about, those are messages that are universal, has nothing to do with your relationship status. It has to do with you loving yourself and understanding your value, right?
Yeah, the really cool thing has been that my readers and social media followers and friends have, their lives have really grown and evolved along with mine. And even though I'm still single by some weird twist of fate, a lot of them are not. And a lot of them have gone on to get engaged and get married and start families. And they are still following, and they are still, very much tuned into what I'm saying. And that's just been such a gift, because I've had the opportunity. I truly feel like with my readers that they're my friends. And, sometimes I'll have someone one of my longtime readers come to town or even move to town. I recently had a girl she's literally been with me almost since day one, and we've only ever been social media friends, and she moved to Nashville. And so we were able to hang out in person last weekend, and, automatically it was like I'd known her forever. So I think that's been such an unexpected gift and just wonderful surprise of doing what I do, is being able to kind of speak into the lives of these women and to be a small part of their lives over the years. And I've even had women who have contacted me and said, you inspired me to really work on myself and really to learn to love myself. And that helped me attract, this wonderful man who I'm now married to. And that's such a beautiful, I love being a little footnote in their story.
Yeah, that's such a gift. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been really just this wonderful full circle relationship with my readers, where I feel like obviously I've been pouring into them for the past 10 years, but they bring so much, inspiration and joy and even healing to me as well. It's been great.
Yeah, amazing. I totally understand that. I don't have the audience that you do, and I haven't been doing this for 10 years. I've only been doing this for 6 years, and the first couple of years it was pretty much offline and local. To me, it is the most gratifying thing in the world to have someone say something like that to me. Like, you helped me do this, and because of that, it changed my life. I fell in love. I attracted this great person. I learned how to love myself. That's how lucky are we that we, even if it's only in some small way, we're just sharing our wisdom and our struggles. But the fact that we have the ability to do that in a way that helps people is such a gift.
It really is. And I think that kind of speaks to the best of social media, in that I think it's allowed, I know it's, changed my life and my career. I'm sure it's done the same for you. I think it really is such a beautiful effect of social media, in that you're able to connect with people one-on-one, and you're able to, share little nuggets of wisdom and humor and inspiration and positivity with people throughout the day. And so, I don't know. I know there's a lot of negativity, certainly, that social media brings, and especially I feel like in recent years since the world has gone haywire. But I definitely think there's still that.
And you were in it. You were in the thick of it.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been, I don't know how you feel, but it's been such an interesting thing to watch, particularly Twitter evolve, because it used to just kind of be this place where, you know, people hung out to post memes and read inspirational quotes, and now it's like breaking news, the world is on fire. You know, every 5 minutes you're looking to see what terrible thing has happened in the world, and that's kind of how, I mean, Twitter's been a very interesting, it's had a very interesting evolution, and I've kind of had to try to adapt to it with my messaging on Twitter. So yeah, it's just, social media is, you know, it's such a blessing, and then it can be such a curse, but I try to really just, those of us who are trying to use it for positive, inspirational, you know, purposes, I think that, you know, we get to see like the really great uplifting side of these platforms, which is wonderful.
Yeah. I admire you on Twitter like every day, because you do such a good job. First of all, you do an amazing job of keeping it positive always, like even when someone might attack you. You know, for those of you who are listening, so Mandy, you should definitely follow her on Twitter, follow the Single Woman account, but also Miss Mandy Hale, and you do such a good job of like being, first of all, so authentic, right? This is who I am, this is what I believe in. You know, you're outspoken about being a Christian, you're outspoken about being a liberal, you're outspoken about the injustices that you see in the world and how much that hurts your heart as a Christian and as someone who, you know, believes in equality, and you get a lot of hate for that message.
Yeah, it's also been kind of cool I mean, obviously we all know that there was this big world shift in 2016, and for probably the first 2 years since the orange one took office.
Yeah, I know, I don't like to say his name either.
The one whose name, it's like Voldemort.
Yes.
Let's call him Voldemort.
Yes, let's do it.
Since he took office, for probably the first 2 years, I think I slowly kind of weeded people out, because I think, you know, I don't really share a lot of anything controversial or political or anything on the Single Woman page, because I really just want to keep that focus. And I feel like that's more of, you know, my professional business page, as opposed to where I feel like I can really speak freely on my personal Twitter page, Miss Mandy Hale. And I got dragged and so much hate from readers even, and I had a lot of people say, oh, I'm gonna burn your books. And I got, everybody's favorite line, well, no wonder you're still single. I'm like, you know what? If I'm still single because I speak up against hate and wrong and
it's so ridiculous anyway. That's such a like third grade argument. Well, you smell anyway.
It's like, I know you are, but what am I? It's like, you know what? I'll stay single. If that's the reason why I'm still single, I will gladly stay single, because I'm not going to stay silent. But it's been really great, because probably over the last maybe year, it's gotten to the point where people have really, I think people are kind of realizing, you know, even the people who weren't necessarily, who their eyes weren't opened at first, I think the shift is happening. And I think that either I, you know, just completely ran people off who disagree with what I'm saying, or they've come around to realize that, hey, you're absolutely right. So yeah, I really don't, I turned 40 in November, and I really just don't have.
Congratulations. Welcome to the best decade.
Thank you. And I just am not going to apologize anymore. I'm not going to apologize for any part of who I am. And I don't always fit in a pretty little box, because Christian and liberal and, you know, have always sort of traditionally been, people think that they're complete opposites. But I think the more time that passes and the more crazy things happen, and the more, I think people's eyes are starting to be open, and they're starting to see that conservative and Christian is actually far more contradictory than liberal and Christian. So yeah, I've kind of reached this place where, you know, we all still get the occasional Twitter troll, but for the most part, I feel like everybody who follows me now is kind of like, you know, right there with me, and pretty much in agreement with a lot of the ways that I feel about what's happening in the world. So that's been great.
That's really good. You touched on this a couple of times, being single yourself. And how is it for you being single but still dating and having this whole brand and this whole identity around being single? And has that been a challenge for you to switch gears? Has it been a challenge for you when you meet men and they find out, who you are and like your messaging? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely scared some men off, which, it's like, okay, well, good, because if you're scared off by this, then you're probably not supposed to be in my life anyway. But what I've really tried to be very conscious of over the past probably couple of years is kind of transitioning from, I used to completely identify as the single woman. Like we were kind of like Superman and Clark Kent.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's my identity anymore. That's why I really made the conscious shift from calling myself the single woman to calling myself the creator of the single woman. And it might seem really small, but to me,
no, I think it's huge.
I think words are powerful, and I don't necessarily want to always have this moniker. I always want to be the creator of the single woman, but I don't want to box myself in. So, and then I also changed my website. Both links still go to my site, but my main site I used to, push and promote was thesinglewoman.net, and now it's mandyhale.com, because I really wanted to kind of step into my own identity and just be Mandy, the writer, and not, be the single woman. So
yeah,
it's been a good transition, and I feel like at first I wasn't sure if people would respond okay to mandyhale.com, but nothing really, really changed at all. And in terms of the whole dating thing, I think it definitely, there's been times I'm not dating right now. I've been on a very purposeful dating hiatus since March, but when I get back out there, I'm like, if I get back on these apps, do I need to list myself as an accountant? Like, what do I need to do here? Because I do feel like it really sort of creates this very uneven playing field, because you have these men, and I've been shocked to find that these men on dating apps, women always get jokingly called stalkers, but these men, I'll just put that I'm a writer and my name is Mandy. I'll have them write me and be like, oh, I saw your blog and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, did you stalk me? Like, how did you find me that fast? And so, they'll know my entire life story because they'll be combing through my blog and, my social media, and I won't know anything about them. So it creates this very sort of this weird gap of like, okay, you're a virtual stranger to me and you literally know everything about me. Yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to balance. Yeah. I think that any man who is going to be intimidated or scared away by what I do is really not the man for me. So any woman listening to this, if there's any part of you that's, because I saw this quote on Pinterest or somewhere that said, are you intimidating or are they just intimidated? Because there's a difference. I think that if there's women listening and, you've had guys give you the whole line about, oh, you're intimidating, you know what? They're not the man for you, because if they're intimidated by any part of your strength or your smarts or your success or anything else, they're clearly not going to be able to rise up to meet you where you're at, and you certainly shouldn't have to stoop down to meet them where they're at. So
absolutely agree.
Yeah, I like to think that there is a man out there who will really,
there are a lot of men out there
like embrace what I'm doing. And I've definitely also dated guys who thought it was really cool and, weren't bothered by it at all. So that's, that's awesome that they do exist. I think it's kind of like a 50-50, whether or not they're going to think, hey, this is super cool, or hey, I'm going to run before you write me into your next book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I totally relate to this because, I'm a love coach and I used to be a matchmaker, and for probably half of the time that I've been in the love business, I was single, and at least half the time. And so for me, it was a real litmus test when I'd meet a guy and he would be like, oh my God, you're a love coach. And he would freak out. Like guys, like some of them are like, oh, so are you judging me right now? Oh, like they would be so insecure. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm just a normal person trying to find someone I connect with.
You're like, it's just a job.
But it really became like the guys who were like, ooh, that's cool. And I remember like on my first date with my boyfriend, he was just like, well, I just am like honored that you think that I'm worthy of going out with. And we just like basically never talked about it again. I mean, not that we never talked about it again, but it was never an issue.
It's amazing. Yeah, because I've had guys hit me up on Bumble and say, are you actually on here to find someone, or are you just looking for writing material?
Well, and they clearly don't read your writing if they think that.
And that's so insulting. It's like,
Yes.
I'm a writer by trade. Like, that's my job. But that doesn't mean that, going to get on a dating app and manipulate men and, do this whole thing where I'm just trying to get some good writing material. It's just, right. I'm immediately just like unmatched, because it's like, if you're gonna come at me like that, then that's just not even, I don't even know how to really even respond to that, because it's just absurd. Just because I write about singleness doesn't mean I want to, people have also asked me, so have you taken a lifetime vow of singleness? I'm like, no, I'm not a nun. I'm not trying to, brand myself for life. It just so happens that I'm 40 and still single, and I feel like I have a lot to say about single life, and so that's my main, obviously I write about other things as well. As long as I'm single, I'm going to always write about singleness, and that doesn't mean that I don't want to someday be married, because I do, but it's just funny the things that people come up with when they hear that like either what you do, love coach, or, you write about single, I don't know, just some people are just, they have the strangest notions about it.
They really do. That's a good way of putting it. Well, 2 quick tips for you for Bumble. I don't know if you've already done this, but for one, the pictures that you're using, you should make sure that they're pictures that aren't anywhere else on the internet.
That's a good idea.
Because, and this is a tip for everyone online, because people can do a reverse image search. So they can take your photo and search, and then they can find wherever else that picture appears. So for you as a high profile person, that is probably a good thing to note, and not have any, have only original photos for Bumble. And then the second thing, I would change your profession from author to entrepreneur, because you are. They wouldn't be enough for them to go on in that case. So you probably have less of that stalking.
That's a really good idea. I should just do it'd be hilarious. I should just do an entire photo shoot just to...
You should. No. That's actually what people should do.
I'm so open about my life. I post pictures all over and now it's gotten to where even my Facebook page and my Twitter page are still, being followed. I have my readers request me as a friend, add me as a friend on Facebook all the time. And so it's not really so much a personal page anymore. But yeah, so most of my photos that even exist are somewhere online. So it would be hard for me to find photos unless I just went and took some specifically for dating apps. Maybe I need to do that.
As a dating coach, that's what I recommend. People always, well, not everyone, some people do this. Most people just repurpose their existing photos. And even if you don't have a high profile, public figure issue like you have, I think the energy of saying, okay, I am intentionally taking this photo because it's for a dating app, and you're telling a story with your profile, right? It's really important, what story am I telling? Because especially as women, oftentimes, because I always make everyone show me their, dating app photos, whether we're working together or not. I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. Or let me see what you're putting out there. A lot of times as women, the photos are they're like Instagrammy, so they're very beautiful, but a little bit distant and more about kind of the pose and the background than about you as a person. And there's actually a lot of power in the vulnerability of just posting a photo of your face, looking into the camera, warmly smiling. That's amazing. And so a lot of people don't have those kind of photos laying around. So I'm like, get your best single girlfriends, you all get together, you get a couple of outfits, and you guys just do a photo shoot. Just take, 100 pictures of each other.
Yeah, because I did that for my 40th birthday. I had a girlfriend in town, and actually it was funny. It was a reader who she started off as a reader, but then she became one of my close friends. She was in town for my birthday, and I was like, hey, I want to do some photos just to say, hey, I'm 40, and they ended up being, we just took them on her iPhone, and they ended up being, honestly, probably some of my favorite photos, even more so than some professional photos I've taken. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. Excellent tip.
Happy to help. Let me know if you need any others. I got a million of them. So I wanted to be sure to talk about You Are Enough, which is your most recent book, and such a great book. And I'm very honored to be on the inside cover giving a quote endorsing this awesome book. That I was so blown away by your honesty and your bravery talking about this chapter of your life. And what I especially loved is just the way you structured the book, how at the end of each chapter you take this lesson of this thing that happened to you, and you had a series of very stressful, heartbreaking events that led you to your quote-unquote rock bottom. But I love how at the end of each chapter you put a button on it in a way that's really a message for the reader about the reader's worthiness, about the reader's, confidence and resiliency. And I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, that was really important for me too, because obviously, with my blog and my books, I really tell my stories, but what I've found is my stories are everyone's stories. There's that powerful, I know that Me Too is a hashtag for a whole other reason, but there is that powerful like Me Too moment when you're reading a book and you connect with the author's story and you see so much of yourself in that story. And so I wanted to find a way to, tell my story, but then also bring it back around to the reader and make it applicable to their life. And, unfortunately, we're living in a time where anxiety and depression are at an all-time high. And, you see these high-profile people taking their own lives, and mental health is such a big issue that I think people still struggle to feel like they can talk about and be authentic and be honest with people about what they're going through. So this book it's so interesting because I felt like over the past, honestly, probably the past year, it's really been a process, or at least since my 40th birthday, I've felt myself almost coming out like I was in this dark tunnel for a couple of years, and now I've been coming back out into the light. And so I'm probably in the strongest, healthiest, happiest place I've ever been in my life, which is amazing. But not everyone is there, and there are still people very much in the midst of that tunnel. So as difficult as this book was to write, and as difficult as it is to even go back and read it and put myself back in that mindset of where I was for so long, I know it was necessary. It was necessary for those people who are still in the tunnel and who are still desperately looking for that light. So yeah, it's a very intense book. And I think definitely my next book, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised to find that it'll be much lighter and hopefully, more humor and just light in general. But I think that it was such a needed book, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to share that story.
I'm glad you did too. I can only imagine the response from readers who are like, oh my God, I've been through this. I know what this is like, and also to see solutions like, oh, okay, let me consider, different kinds of therapy. Let me consider different levels of therapy, depending on what's going on. So you talk a lot about, therapy and the group therapy that you went through. But now, what are some of your resources just to keep you in this really good, positive place that you're in right now?
Right. Definitely maintaining therapy. Now, you touched on the different levels of therapy, which for me, this is another reason why I wanted to include this in the book. A lot of people don't realize the various options they have available to them. You think, you're struggling, you find a therapist, you go sit down and talk one-on-one once a week or once every, there's so many options. And so that's why I wanted, until I went through what I went through, I never knew that there was such a thing as intensive outpatient therapy. I never knew that there was such a thing as partial hospitalization, where you go for, 5 or 6 hours a day and then you go home at night, because the whole idea of being hospitalized was so terrifying to me. So yeah, just knowing that there were these different levels of programs available to me was such a huge resource. And finding the right therapist, which I have, she's amazing. She's an anxiety specialist, and just meeting with her on a regular basis, that's my number one. Honestly, I think I cannot stress enough that I think, honestly, I feel like every human being needs to be in therapy in some capacity. Even if you go once a month, even if you go 4 times a year, just having someone there who's a professional and who can help you make sense of what's going on in your life and your struggles and different things that you're working through. It's such an invaluable resource. And my therapist has helped me make so many breakthroughs just over the past few months. And so that's my number one go-to. I think the tendency can be when you're struggling with depression especially, but even also anxiety, the tendency can be to shut off the world and isolate. And I think I tend to be a little bit of a loner anyway, and I really do love my solitude.
Me
but
too.
I have to make sure that I plan fun things. For me, it's typically at least 2 to 3 fun things a week with friends or family, or even if it's just going to the bookstore on my own and, sitting in the coffee shop and having a frappuccino and reading a book or whatever. Making a conscious effort to have things to look forward to and to get you out of the house is so important, because if you're constantly, as much as I love my solitude, if I'm home alone too much, I can start to feel myself lapsing back into, negative thinking and just feeling, down. And so, I think that's so important to make sure, even if you are an introvert, even if it's once a week, to make sure you're doing something to get out there and be with people and to laugh and, go see a movie. It doesn't have to be something fancy.
It could be a walk in the park if that's fun for you. Yeah.
Exactly. And even if you just want to go, like I said, just go to the bookstore by yourself, or just be around people, be out there in the world and see that there's, all sorts of beautiful things out there for you.
I love that. I love the idea of making that commitment to yourself every week. That's really cool. And I also think of what you're saying about solitude is probably true for a lot of people who don't realize it, especially, my focus is single women because that's who I work with, but I know I have plenty of clients who are very social and they, go out and do lots of fun things, and this isn't an issue at all, but I definitely have had clients who spend a lot of time alone, and just like you and just like me, I love my solitude. For me, going to the movies by myself is my preferred way to go to the movies. That's my ultimate, treat myself. I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to eat popcorn for dinner. It makes me so happy to do that. I can sit where I want. I don't have to talk to anyone, see what I want.
I've literally gotten to the point, going to the movies by myself is like my therapy. And people laugh at me when I tell them this. But I will go, because we have this really big, nice theater with the recliners and everything. I always have my box of Junior Mints. I will reserve a seat, in the top corner, so I know I'm going to be completely by myself. I even, take off my bra. I bring a blanket. It's a whole thing. It is my Mandy time. And
you outdid me there.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you. I'm I'm going to get comfortable. The bra's coming off. The Junior Mints are coming out. It's just, it's a whole thing that I have. So, even if you just do that. And again, bra is optional.
Bra optional. I like that bra coming off idea. See, I like to sit in the front because my goal when I go to the movies, it's I just want to see the screen. I don't want to see other people. I like to sit close enough that I don't have to see people getting up and moving around and stuff. But I love the taking the bra off and bringing a blanket. That's just a new level. I never even thought about that.
Oh yeah, my blanket comes with me every time now, because the double bonus of that is I have my little tote bag, and underneath my blanket I bring in my snacks, so I don't have to spend $25 on movie snacks. You can literally get a box of Junior Mints for $1 or $2 at Walgreens. That'll be $7 or $8 at the movies. So,
that's so true.
Yeah, I'm very covert with my sneaking in the snacks.
I hope that people are taking notes on this. This is next level movie game. That I too am a smuggler, full on. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Absolutely. The drinks, the Junior Mints, it's all coming in the bag underneath the blanket. So, yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, Mandy, you're so good at looking at the positive and shifting your perspective to find, the blessings and the lessons and the silver linings. So I would love to hear, what do you think, there's so much talk about what's wrong with dating today and dating apps and ghosting and this and that and so many complaints. What do you see is going well about dating today, or a conversation about dating or love? Is there anything that you find really encouraging that's going on culturally?
Oh man. I think the fact that I really think that women are kind of starting to rise up And this is not let me preface this by saying I'm not a man basher. I do not think all men are crap. I do not think that all men are dogs. I don't think, any of that. But what I do think is that for a long time, women, I think it comes back to like, I think so many people struggle with loving themselves and so many people struggle with self-worth that there was sort of this generation of women that sort of allowed themselves to settle or to put up with any treatment they would get from any guy. The bad guys, mostly. I don't mean the good guys. So good guys listening, please don't be offended. I'm not referring to you. I think that women are really starting to kind of set up and say, hey, I have to really work on myself and get myself to a happy place before I can, expect to be happy with someone else. And I think that, it's not where I would like it to be, but I think that it's becoming sort of this uprising of women who are, setting some boundaries and setting some standards and no longer willing to kind of put up with whatever just to avoid being alone. And I mean, you see the stories coming out of the 7 single women best friends who bought the house. And, it's kind of like women are like, hey, I'm empowered to kind of chart my own path. And if that involves a great guy coming along and joining me on it, great. But if not, I'm going to still do my thing. And that's kind of what I'm seeing happening in the world as a whole. I'm seeing it happening amongst my readers. I'm seeing it happening amongst my friends, even myself. I'm actually getting ready to start actively pursuing adoption because I really want to be a mom.
Wow,
and
amazing.
I've always wanted to adopt, and I don't feel like I need to wait on, I do think I will eventually have, hopefully, a life partner, but whether or not that happens, I plan to still be a mother. And so, yeah, I think that that's really encouraging. And that, I mean, I'm sure that counts for the men too. I can't speak for the men because I'm not a man, but I think that people are, in general, starting to develop some self-awareness about, hey, I need to worry about getting my own life in order and not just frantically pursuing a relationship at all costs, even to my own detriment and the other person's detriment. And like, once I have my own thing going, then I'll invite, someone else into it. So I think that that's really hopeful. I mean, I definitely think that there's a lot wrong.
You're like, let me be clear.
Our current dating culture, I still think that, the biggest issue being that people kind of treat people disposably. I think that's true within dating, yes, within friendships, within jobs, within everywhere. But I also think that there are some positive things happening, and that's really encouraging for me.
I agree that women feeling more empowered and not deriving their self-worth and their identity from, being someone's wife or girlfriend is huge. And I think that even though love is taking longer for a lot of people, I actually think that it's a blessing to be 40 and single. I think it's a blessing to be 40 and single and to know who you are and to know that you're uncompromising in who you are. Because when we get into relationships before that happens, and I know for you, this has been a journey. For me, this has been a journey. And probably for everyone who's listening, this has been a journey, whether you are like talking about it and framing it this way or not. And when you know yourself, then you can pick a relationship. You can pick a person because they complement you, because you get to experience all the greatness of your life. It just gets better. It's not like you're looking for them to make your life to complete you, because you're already complete. And so you can come to the relationship really accepting each other for who you are, not, putting fantasy and dysfunction on top of that. So I think it's a blessing to be able to do this work on yourself before you get a life partner involved, because it's a lot harder. I mean, sometimes I'll talk to women who are in their 40s and they're telling me these issues they're having with their husbands. And I'm just like, I'm not a couples counselor. I don't want to be. I never would do that. But it's like, I hear them articulating things and I'm like, wow, if you had gone into this relationship loving yourself more, knowing yourself more, setting boundaries from the beginning, because now they're in a place where they feel really, really stuck and it's really hard. And I'm like, wow, it's a blessing to be able to figure this stuff out on your own.
Well, and I'm like a prime example of this because honestly, last year I met a guy who I fell madly in love with. But the thing is, I was a complete mess. And frankly, I shouldn't have been out there trying to meet anyone. I should have been focusing on, working through some of my own issues and healing from some past hurts and things. And I was just really more focused on finding someone than I was, taking care of myself. And so got into this relationship. And I mean, certainly we both had our flaws, but I am not too proud to admit that I was the primary reason that the relationship ended, because a lot of my anxieties and trust issues. And if I were to meet that guy today, when I'm actually ready and healed and strong and healthy, it would have probably been, I mean, who knows? We may have ended up getting married. And I know people say wrong timing, wrong person. I mean, I get all that. I'm not saying all this to say I have regrets or that I think I let my person get away. I'm saying that to say that, if you're not healed and if you're not ready to be out there, don't be out there just to find a relationship to be a Band-Aid or to keep you from being alone or to distract you from the issues that you need to work on within yourself, because, it's just going to work out a lot better if you wait until you're actually ready to be out there and you're strong and you're, you know who you are, and you are not, still trying to overcome all these past hurts. Once you've healed from all of, then you're ready to go find love. But yeah, I mean, the relationship literally had nowhere to go but down, and it ended, and I was devastated. And I guess the beautiful part of that story would be that relationship and the ending of that relationship ended up being the catalyst for me to experience the greatest growth of my entire life. So, I mean, I'm happy, and it was a blessing, and everything happened exactly the way it needed to happen. But had I just done what I needed to do in the first place, I never would have gone through, months of hurt, and I wouldn't have, other people wouldn't have gotten involved. And it's just a big old mess. Basically, again, another quote talks about how you'll be toxic to anyone you meet until you heal yourself. And that's so true. It's absolutely true. And so true. I am living proof of that. So I just now at age 40 feel like I'm actually probably pretty close to being ready to get back out there. And yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I love that. And I love that you have that awareness, which is huge. And I know that there are a lot of potential someones out there for you, as there are for everyone. So not that you asked my advice, but the way that I look at this is the only thing that you have control over is yourself and your actions and your intentions and how you show up in the world. Ultimately, your job is to be the most you can be, right? And you open yourself up and just make sure that you're not putting any obstacles between you and love, because that love is absolutely available to you. So
yes, absolutely. And you can give me advice all day, every day.
Okay. Awesome. Amazing. Oh, Mandy, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Anytime.
This was great. One last very quick question. I can't say it's an easy question, but maybe it is for you because you talk about this so much. If you had a megaphone and you could blast out a message to the whole world loud enough for everyone to hear, about love, what would that message be?
Oh gosh.
And you can interpret that any way you want.
I guess, it might sound cliche, but I just saw the movie yesterday, which was phenomenal. Truly, all you need is love. I mean, really, that really is like everything in our world could be healed by just more love. Every, relationship could be healed by just loving yourself a little bit more and loving the other person a little bit more. Everything in that, like literally all of these horrific things you see happening wouldn't be happening if we had a loving person, at the helm of our country. So I think truly all we need is love. And, the Beatles said it, and I firmly believe that that's true. I think that all the ailings of the world and within ourselves and within relationships, there's really nothing on this planet that can't be cured with love. So
I agree with that. I love it. Self-love. Everybody who's listening to this, even if you think, I'm good with self-love, I'm fine, I love myself. No, like really, take the time to go deeper, check in with yourself. Am I being compassionate toward myself? Do I truly believe I'm worthy? Read Mandy's book, You Are Enough, and ask yourself these questions, learn from her journey. So brave of you, and I'm so grateful for you, Mandy.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you.
Thanks, honey. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and Please follow Mandy. And there you have it, my conversation with Mandy Hale. I really, really hope that you enjoyed it. If you are enjoying this podcast and you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe on whichever platform you're listening. And be sure to check out the show notes for links to all of Mandy's social media so you can stay in touch with her. And you can stay in touch with me on all social media at dearfranny. You see, I make this really easy for myself. You can also stay in touch with the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Franny Podcast. See what I mean? Real easy. Your time is very precious, and I don't take it for granted that you spent a bit of it today with me and the podcast. So I thank you very much. Wherever you are in the world, I'm sending you lots of love, and until next time, goodbye.